Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to today's realistic review in which we are taking a look at the British Sea Gladiator sitting at 1.0 battle rating. Sea Gladiators, Gladiators, what's the actual difference? Well, not much. Of course the stat cards are identical, but as you know, stat cards are not always reliable in War Thunder, so you go from your own experience. I feel it's a little heavier. It feels like it's a little heavier, but it's not really noticeable. Talk to other people as well. Seems to be the only thing that really feels a little bit different. But for the rest, it feels like a Sea Gladiator. It is. Sorry, Sea Gladiator. It feels like a gladiator. It breathes like a gladiator. It is a gladiator. Definitely not the best biplane in the world when it comes to maneuverability, and that is actually what you want to see in a biplane. It's not bad at it either, but it's distinctly well, I mean, it's not shining in the turn rate against other biplanes. It is though against monoplanes, so there's something to keep in mind. You've got to boom and zoom against other biplanes, and you've got to turn fight against monoplanes. This is basically a rule that goes 100%. There is only one or two biplanes like the Ki-27, the A5M4, and the CW21 Chinese. Well, there's actually three. Good math. That can outturn this thing. So keep that in mind. But against all other monoplanes, you should do a good job. And against biplanes, you want to actually use the speed of this plane at 1.0, which is actually quite good. The maximum speed at sea level without whip is 320 kilometers an hour, and with whip 300 and did I say 220? It is 320 and 327 with whip. At 4500 meters, this is 317 without whip and 322 with. And finally, at 6500 meters, she'll go up to 275 without whip and 278 with whip. Now this is in indicated airspeed without Mk. So yeah, now the plane for a 1.0 battle rating has some decent speed. It is definitely not the best, but it is far from the worst. And boom and zooming is quite nice. Does that top speed in a dive support those dives for you? Yes, it has a longer width in a dive, with 532 before she redlines and 585 before she rips apart. This is actually quite nice at 1.0 against the other biplanes. Becomes a little bit less at the 2.0 up tiers, but overall top speed in the dive is quite nice. The handling in the dive is also quite decent, so no problems there. Control stiffening gets the first tick at 300 kilometers an hour, and the second more severe tick at 400, where the roll rate really starts to compress. The elevator stays functional much longer, and it's definitely possible to pull out of a dive. So those dives can be fairly effective up to 475, 500 kilometers an hour. After that, you really want to pull the plane out of that dive. It becomes a little bit difficult to control after that, especially if you're still rolling and you're getting close to the ground, because the roll rate as often is most effective by the compression. Stall speed in this plane is 80 kilometers an hour, which is actually quite good, and the plane does fairly decent in the vertical, although of course again you have to make the distinction between biplanes. Against biplanes it does fairly well, and against monoplanes who have often less drag and better performance in the horizontal, in the vertical, those planes will often outspeed you in the vertical and have better energy retention there, and thus you sometimes get shot out of the sky. But you got to really pay attention to what you're facing and get those few monoplanes that can outturn you out of the picture as soon as possible, like this Ki-27 here, who doesn't want to die because of my bad aim. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say bad, but we missed the mark here completely, and then we suddenly get that crit as we get into the right range. Finding it, I was flying stealth, which can be very nice for the surprise factor, but if you're a little bit off or it's your first match of the day, as this one was, then well, maybe good to get your feeling to not use stealth in that first match. Sometimes I have those bad moments as well. Anyway, the firepower in the plane is good. You have 4 7.7mm Browning machine guns with 600 rounds per gun for the inner pair and 400 rounds per gun for the outer pair. There's a difference there. The plane has no bombs, so it's a pure fighter, really focused on that. The ammo load is good with 500 rounds per gun. Acceleration for the plane in a straight line is average. Not too great. In a dive it's good though, maybe because of the extra weight, I don't know. But on this one, dive speed felt good. Energy retention in the horizontal below average, and in the vertical slightly better with average. Climb rate is above average to decent. Yeah, so the performance in the plane is not fantastic, but it is not bad either. You can work with it. Most biplanes have these kind of values, although some are a little bit better, some are a little bit worse. This one is definitely above the average, especially in a dive. The performance is quite good, so thus boom and zooming is definitely recommended against the other biplanes, as I mentioned before. Turn timing in the plane is good, but as I said, when you compare it to most of the biplanes, the plane turns worse, and against most monoplanes, the plane turns better. So yeah, you gotta make that distinction in the Gladiator. If you do that, you will do fairly well in the plane, and it can wreak havoc. Those flaps help a little bit, and they only rip off at 500 kilometers an hour, which is nice in this plane. Roll rate is below average, but the faster it goes, the more it rolls off center, so it becomes more difficult to get the guns on target there, affecting the effective dive speed. Although once you know it, you can keep it into account and actually use it. Sometimes it helps getting the guns on target, but you have to know it well. Maneuverability in the plane is decent overall. Overheating in the plane is not an issue, which is quite nice. You can whip to your heart's content. It will cool off very quickly, that is good. Durability in the plane is also decent. It can definitely take a hit or two. I find it one of the more durable biplanes in the game. Some of them really do fall apart just like that, but this one seems to have a little bit more sturdiness to it. Well, especially this one. There goes the Hampton. Definitely nasty backgunners on that thing. Really hurt me there. Also the forward facing gun on the Hampton is always nasty, especially when you're stalling out right there. So this guy really damaged me there. And I just hit him as he disappeared below the hill, and I don't get that kill. Bloody hell. I'm also the only plane left alive on my team. And Gaijin, come on. I mean, I hit him a minute before it crashed, maybe half a minute. I think it was half a minute, less than half a minute, but still didn't get that kill. Seems you have to get a crit to be sure of those things, but even then I've seen it happen that you don't get it. It's still, if enough time passes, you know, you don't get your well-deserved kill. Anyway, we've got to try to get it back to base. This thing, as I said, it is quite sturdy, and this engine as well, it's still working. It's heavily damaged. And it holds on a long time, this plane, as you get a lot of punishment. But unfortunately for us, we're getting very close to the airfield, but there is hills in the way. And they are quite steep, and I don't have any speed. I definitely don't think I can manage it. Well, it is a Sea Gladiator, right? So I can definitely land in the water, right? Should be possible. Well, we're very close. We're within a kilometer of the airfield. Eventually, I thought I could get around this hill and then just fly to it, but no. Engine is really giving up right now. I have to get up, you know, and it just doesn't work. It's not working. We're not gonna make it. But we saved the pilot. I-16 gets the kill. We had a good match though. Really. If we would have been able to make it back to the airfield, we would have killed a lot of them. Obviously. 5 kills. You know, arguably 6. But Gladiator works. It works, but you gotta be disciplined in it, and you gotta know its downsides well. And its oddities, like that roll off center the faster you go in a dive. Those are the things you really gotta know. We've got soft landing, oh nice, best squad, terror of the sky, 10,000 silver lions and almost 2,500 research points. I'll see you in the conclusion. Hey guys, so here we are after the match. Well, I mean, the Sea Gladiator, it is a fun plane at 1.0 battle rating. It sits there better than the Gladiator Mark II, which sits at 1.3. It makes the Sea Gladiator a little bit nicer, because up tiers to 2.3 definitely aren't fun in the Gladiator. The Gladiator is a very specific plane. The British, while still thinking biplanes were the future, were making this the ultimate biplane of that age, but while the Germans were already working on the Bf 109. British were a little bit behind in some senses there. Thank God they were also working on other stuff at the same time. But yeah, this Sea Gladiator, I find it enjoyable, but you do have to make great distinction in that it cannot turn fight other biplanes, as one. It can also not turn fight a certain amount of monoplanes, specifically the CW21, the Ki-27 and the A5M4. For the rest, it does fairly well against other monoplanes in the turn fighting, so you can definitely dogfight against those guys. But you gotta boom and zoom before that against the biplanes, and it does that fairly well, I have to say. And if you keep that distinction in mind and don't get lured into turn fighting an I-15, for example, which is insanely maneuverable, or a CR42 or 32, well, the 32 is actually not that maneuverable, but that might be the only biplane this plane can definitely handle. Fun plane. Definitely doable, definitely able to do some, but it's definitely not an outlier. It's definitely not one of excellence, where, for example, the Japanese 3, which we just reviewed, is so excellent in some of the things that it has to offer, but the British line is definitely a little bit less shiny when it comes to that. But this is a workhorse, and she can do work. That is that. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.